Welcome to the Deep Dive Classroom, curious learners.
Today, we're embarking on a really compelling research project. We're basically going to reverse engineer the methods of one of the world's most unlikely and I think most effective online educators.
We are talking about the phenomenon that is Rick Beato.
Exactly.
I mean, let's just start with the hook that, well, it launched 1 billion views. Imagine this. You hear a ridiculously complex jazz chord, played for just a second, and you can instantly name every single note in it. Not just that it's a C minor major 7 sharp 11, but every individual note.
Which is what Rick's son, Dylan, did in that viral video at 8 years old.
At 8. It was just this astonishing display of, well, perfect pitch and just pure musicality.
And that video, which, really vaulted the channel into the stratosphere, it wasn't fronted by some slick young influencer.
No.
It was Rick Beato, an established producer, a professor who was, and he said this himself, he was deeply skeptical about his own potential on YouTube.
He had that famous quote, right? Nobody's going to watch an old guy with white hair on YouTube.
The irony is just, it's incredible because today that Everything Music channel has over 5 million subscribers. He is without a doubt the king of musical analysis on the platform.
And he can break down the DNA of just about anything.
Yeah.
From, a super sophisticated Sting song
to the driving heavy rock of a band like Shinedown. He proved that, deep quality content can absolutely cut through all the noise.
So our mission in this deep dive is to give you the blueprint, the shortcut to his secret sauce, if you will.
Right. We're not just here to admire his success. We're here to really analyze his framework. How does he take this deep university-level theory,
the really dense stuff,
and connect it with that genuine gut-level emotional impact that we all feel when we listen to music?
And maybe most importantly, what are the teaching strategies, the pedagogy that you can take and apply to your own area of expertise? Whether you're, analyzing data, writing a novel, or just trying to master any complex skill.
That's the goal. We're going to conduct a rigorous analysis of his career path, those analytical pillars he uses, and his specific teaching style.
And it's not just about understanding music better. It's about understanding how expert knowledge is best communicated and maybe best consumed in the 21st century.
So our path is pretty clear. First, we have to establish a foundation. What gives him this undeniable authority?
Then we'll break down his 5-pillar analysis framework, the one that connects all the technical stuff to the emotion.
And finally, we'll dissect the specific teaching strategies that turn something as, frankly, intimidating as music theory into compulsively watchable, globally popular content.
So think of this as your personalized online masterclass. I really encourage you to listen actively and to reflect. Ask yourself, how do you currently process new, complex information?
And how could Beato's synthesis of the head, the theory, and the heart, the emotion, improve the way you communicate your own expertise?
So let's begin by establishing why, when Rick Beato starts talking about music theory, millions of people lean in and listen with absolute confidence.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea. Rick Beato's influence is, it's profound, but it is not accidental.
Right.
Our first teaching point is really that his authority is rooted in this rare, really potent combination of things.
It's like a 3-legged stool, isn't it?
It is. You've got rigorous academic training, decades of real-world commercial industry success, and then this foundational, deeply held love of teaching.
He didn't just stumble into being an expert. He built his expertise brick by rigorous brick.
Absolutely. When you watch his channel, you are engaging with someone who has, done the time in every single corner of the music world, and he synthesized all these varied experiences into a seamless teaching methodology.
So let's start with those credentials, his formal education.
This is key. He's not a self-taught amateur, even though he, like a lot of us, probably started out learning riffs by ear.
Right.
He holds a bachelor's in classical bass from Ithaca College.
And then a master's in jazz studies from the New England Conservatory, that's a prestigious place. That's a very serious academic path.
And that specific combination of degrees is so important. Classical training gives you the rigor, the deep harmonic understanding, a grasp of formal structure.
The architecture of music.
Exactly. But then jazz studies, especially at the master's level, that demands instantaneous applied knowledge. You have to improvise, you have to analyze complex harmony on the fly.
You have to speak the language in real time.
That's the perfect way to put it. So this dual focus means he has this deep respect for tradition, but he also champions adaptation and, spontaneous creativity.
And this academic background led him straight into teaching, right?
Immediately. In his late 20s, he was a music professor at Ithaca College. And he wasn't just a part-time lecturer. This is where he really honed that love for passing along the knowledge he'd acquired.
And this is where we get to that staggering number from the sources. Beato estimates he taught over, 12,000 private lessons.
12,000. Before he ever uploaded a single YouTube video. Just think about that for a second.
The amount of data you'd get from that.
Exactly. Think of the pedagogical data mine from 12,000 one-on-one sessions.
12,000 lessons is 12,000 chances to see exactly where a student gets lost.
Right, where they misunderstand a concept.
It's 12,000 chances to refine your analogies, to figure out how to explain the same idea 5 different ways, and to spot all the common pitfalls in learning music theory or technique.
That volume gives you a unique kind of expertise. You become an expert at diagnosing learning gaps and building a curriculum that actually works.
It really is the difference between someone who's, read a few books on teaching and someone who has logged thousands of hours in the trenches, iterating and improving their communication style based on immediate feedback.
And he took that detailed, customized one-on-one classroom experience and figured out how to successfully scale it for a global audience online.
Yep.
It's kind of incredible.
But his career didn't stay in the classroom, which is the second pillar of his authority.
Right. In the 90s, he moves to Atlanta and makes that crucial pivot into the recording industry. He opens Black Dog Sound Studios in 1995. This is where he gets his industry chops.
And he became a multi-hyphenate, as they say.
Yeah.
A session musician, an engineer, a mixer, and a really successful producer.
Exactly. And that hands-on practical experience means that when he's talking about a song, he's not just talking about the notes on the page.
No, he understands the technical difficulty of playing that drum part. He knows the specific microphone they probably used on the vocal, and he understands the mixing philosophy behind the sound.
It's the whole picture. And that practical skill set was, well, it was undeniably validated with a bona fide commercial smash hit.
Yeah, this is a big one. He'd produced respected rock acts like Shinedown and Need to Breathe, but the ultimate proof of his pop sensibility came when he co-wrote the country hit Carolina
by the band Parmalee. And it went to #1 on the country charts in 2013.
A #1 hit.
That #1 hit is absolutely critical to his narrative. It proves that all that deep academic understanding of melody, harmony, and arrangement translates directly into market success.
He understands complex jazz, and he understands the precise simplicity and emotional directness you need for a hit country song.
Which is a much harder thing to do than most people think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So this brings up the skeptical question, right? Does having all that theory truly make the difference? Or was he just, lucky with that one hit song?
Well, the sources really suggest that the theory gives you the tools to replicate success, not just to get lucky once. He can analyze why that song worked.
He can deconstruct it.
He can deconstruct the specific chord changes, the use of that simple singable melody, the pacing of the arrangement. The academic training lets him look backwards and forwards so that the success isn't just random, it's replicable.
So it shows he has command over both the complex structures and the simple ones.
Precisely. And all of this is the launch pad for his unexpected second act.
Yeah, he's already in his mid-50s, launches the channel in 2015. Apparently an intern convinced him to do it.
Right. Then the Perfect Pitch video with Dylan goes viral, and within about a year or two, his success lets him quit the grueling day job of a studio producer.
And he becomes a full-time academic advocate, basically.
And that advocacy is the final cornerstone of his authority. Beato is one of the very few creators at his level who fights for the cause, not just for the views.
This shows his commitment to the educational mission over just pure monetization.
Let's look at his flagship series, What Makes This Song Great? He relies on using short snippets of the original recordings, often the isolated multi-tracks, to dissect a song.
Which is a copyright minefield.
A total minefield. He knows that using that material means a lot of those videos will get claimed by copyright holders, which risks demonetization. And we're talking about substantial sums of money sometimes.
Yet he does it anyway.
He accepts the risk. He accepts that financial trade-off because the educational value of using the original recording hearing, that isolated drum track, or that one guitar layer, is just paramount for you, the listener.
That's a powerful statement. Substance first, revenue second.
And his advocacy goes way beyond just YouTube policy debates. In 2020, he was actually called to testify before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee.
About the DMCA and fair use, right?
Correct. And then again in 2023, he testified on the really critical issue of AI in music.
That's a huge deal. That elevates him from just a content creator to a legitimate thought leader.
It does, and his testimony on AI was particularly insightful because it came from his producer background. He wasn't just arguing for protecting existing copyrights.
He was arguing for something more fundamental.
Yes, the moral imperative of protecting human creativity and sonic identity against misuse by AI models. He's taking that academic rigor and that industry experience, filtering it through his YouTube channel, and bringing that authority right into major policy discussions.
It's a really compelling synthesis, isn't it? He's got the street cred of a producer and the intellectual cred of a professor, all in the digital sphere.
He's a frickin' musical genius, as his fans call him, but he stays deeply humble and just. Omnivorous in his taste. He's ready to analyze anything from opera to death metal.
And that wide-ranging, evidence-based expertise is what defines his authority.
So for you, the curious learner, the application here is pretty clear. When you approach a complex subject, ask yourself, have I grounded my knowledge in both the why, the theory, the academic rigor, and the how, the practical real-world application?
Because to build that unassailable authority, you need to synthesize both. Don't just rely on book knowledge, you have to go out and apply it under pressure.
That synthesis is what lets Rick approach any piece of music with confidence. He can speak to the compositional structure and the production techniques.
So now let's explore the systematic lens he uses to actually analyze the music. Let's look at his framework.
Okay, so our next key teaching point really dives into the analytical engine of the Everything Music channel.
The secret sauce itself.
Pretty much. Rick's core philosophy is that technical analysis, the head stuff, only matters when it's in service of the emotional impact, the heart.
And his analysis is broken down into 5 key pillars.
Right. Harmony, melody, rhythm, production, and the one that ties it all together, emotional storytelling.
He basically gives listeners a system for active listening. A way to move from the purely subjective, I like this song, to the objective or at least explainable source of that feeling.
I like this song because the production uses a specific reverb that creates a sense of space and nostalgia. You can name the thing.
Exactly. Let's start with harmony.
Harmony is the foundation. This is where he's analyzing chord progressions, tonal centers, and voicings, and he demystifies this idea that complex harmony is only for jazz, showing how pop and rock use really sophisticated moves all the time.
And his core insight, the thing he always comes back to, is that dissonance equals emotion.
That's it. He provides a technical receipt for feelings. He explains why a certain chord creates a moment of melancholy or a feeling of bright hope.
There's that great example from the sources about the Blink-182 song.
Oh, it's perfect. He identifies this hidden dissonance, an octave synth clashing unexpectedly against a guitar chord. And he points out that this subtle clash pulls at your heartstrings and gives the tune its angst.
The angst isn't just in the lyrics, it's literally baked into the notes.
And we can expand on that by looking at his use of what's called modal mixture, or borrowed chords.
Right. This is when a song that's clearly in a major key suddenly uses a chord from the parallel minor key.
Exactly. So say you're in C major, using happy-sounding chords like C, F, and G, and then you suddenly introduce an A-flat major chord. That's the lowered 6th chord, the BVI, and it comes from C minor.
And the emotional shift is huge, isn't it? That A-flat major is harmonically distant from the major key, and it just instantly transports you to a more somber or reflective or even a cinematic space.
And Beato would demonstrate that in a rock song, that borrowed chord, even if it's super distorted, is doing all the heavy lifting to create the drama the song needs.
He also focuses a lot on voicings.
A ton. It's not just what notes are being played, but how they're arranged across the instruments.
So a chord played low and bunched together sounds different than the same notes spread far apart.
Totally. A low, tight cluster, a closed voicing sounds heavy, grounded. But the same chord spread widely across 2 or 3 octaves. An open voicing sounds airy, ethereal, hopeful, and these subtle choices are tied directly to the emotional story.
And what's crucial is that his teaching is layered. He always balances the familiar stuff, like the basic IFEV progressions, before he dives into the more complex things.
Right, so the beginner hears the simple chord names and feels included, while the advanced musician hears him talk about secondary dominance or modal interchange and gets the deeper theoretical concept.
Okay, so after harmony, he says melody is king.
He does, and his focus here is on the contour, the shape of the melodic line, the range, and the use of specific intervals and motifs. He teaches that every melodic decision is an emotional decision.
It's about how the notes move and what scale degrees create specific psychological effects.
Exactly. He'll analyze that longing sound you get when a melody resolves from the really tense seventh degree of the scale back to the stable first degree. That feeling of tension and release is manufactured precisely by those notes.
Or what about the Lydian raised fourth?
Oh, that's a great one. That's the degree that gives music that dreamy, almost celestial quality. Beato shows how that one note, just a little sharper than you expect, just lifts the entire melodic landscape.
It's a tool you hear in film scores all the time, right?
Yeah.
When the character is having a moment of realization or inspiration.
Constantly. And he ties it directly to the lyrical sentiment. If a vocal line has a high, sustained note, he'll point out that it soars and lifts the song's emotion to match a triumphant lyric. The melody is the narrative map.
Which is a powerful insight for any kind of communication, really. The pitch and contour of how you deliver information in your melody matters as much as the content itself.
If your presentation arc is dynamic, you hold attention. If it's monotonic, even the best data will fall flat.
All right, third pillar, rhythm, the engine of feel.
This is the powerhouse. And Rick's multi-genre background really lets him discuss anything, from the complex swing feel of jazz to the lockstep intensity of metal.
He focuses on tempo, meter, syncopation, groove.
And he'll frequently isolate the drum track or the bass line to demonstrate these devices. He'll show how syncopation playing slightly off the main beat creates that danceable forward momentum.
He loves using examples like Rush and their complex time signatures.
Of course, songs like Limelight. He'll show how those sudden shifts in meter, say from 44 to 78, instantly raise the listener's excitement and perception of complexity. It matches the song's thematic intensity perfectly.
And he always grounds these rhythmic choices in genre history.
Always. He'll point out a specific Latin clave pattern or a funk syncopation and tie it back to the traditions that birthed those feels. The rhythm section isn't just keeping time, it's defining the cultural and emotional landscape of the song.
I do have to ask, though, when you isolate the bass line or the drum track, isn't there a risk of missing the overall groove? Because the rhythm often relies on how all the elements work together.
That's a necessary critical question, but his purpose is purely educational. By isolating the tracks, he allows you, the learner, to identify which specific component is generating that feel.
It's like a magnifying glass.
Exactly. It lets us see the micro-level mechanics. Once you understand that, you can put the pieces back together and appreciate the complexity of the whole in a completely new way. It's structural analysis, not just passive listening.
Which brings us to production, the sonic story.
And this is where his authority as a veteran producer who owned a studio really shines. This is all about instrumentation, arrangement, mixing techniques, and dynamic choices.
He uses Pro Tools, his DIW, as a teaching tool.
Constantly. When he can, he'll open up the multi-track session and solo tracks, saying things like, listen to just the reverb trail on the snare drum here.
And he shows how doubling guitars and panning them hard left and right creates that huge, wide sound.
Or how a subtle string pad that only creeps in during the bridge supports the narrative shift without overwhelming the vocal. He makes complex audio engineering concepts really accessible.
He'll describe how a slapback echo on a vocal gives it an instant vintage or rockabilly vibe.
And this leads directly to his critiques of modern trends. He's very good at distinguishing the composition from the production. He'll praise a song's structure while arguing against practices like brick wall limiting.
Explain that. Why is brick wall limiting such a major issue for him? It's not just a sonic preference, is it?
No, because he sees it as an emotional killer. If everything in the track is equally loud, there's no dynamic contrast. Music relies on tension and release soft moments that build to loud climaxes.
So when a track is squashed, as they say, you lose that journey.
You lose the emotional valley and peak. It results in a fatiguing listening experience that lacks the emotional arc of classic recordings. He emphasizes that great production has to enhance dynamics, not compress them out of existence.
And that leads to the final pillar, emotional storytelling. This is the synthesis.
This is where it all comes full circle. It's the so what moment, where he demonstrates how harmony, melody, rhythm, and production all combine to create a unified feeling or narrative.
The head serving the heart.
That's it. He starts with the feeling, this song feels haunting and triumphant, and then he gives you the musical receipt.
The haunting feeling comes from the low, dense chord voicings in the minor key, and the triumph arrives via the sudden, sharp shift into a major chord on the word rise.
He provides the vocabulary for emotion. He uses words like cathartic, nostalgic, urgent, and then he breaks down which specific technical ingredient is responsible for that feeling.
A sudden key change signals a narrative shift in the lyrics. A relentless, fast rhythm section establishes urgency.
He'll even incorporate cultural context, like how a specific analog synth sound from 1978 creates a certain nostalgic flavor. He's fascinated by the entire ecosystem of a song.
This integration is really the hallmark of his genius, isn't it? He validates the casual fan who just instinctively loved the song, and at the same time he educates the musician who now understands the precise mechanics behind that visceral reaction.
So let's apply this. Here's your what makes my song great analysis prompt. Take a song you genuinely love, one you listen to all the time. Put on your Beato hat and try to write a short, focused breakdown.
Okay, so ask yourself, what specific chord, the harmony, adds a color or tension you didn't notice before? What is the most memorable phrase, the melody, and why does its shape elevate the lyric?
And how does the beat, the rhythm make you feel? What subtle syncopation is driving that feeling? And what specific production element, a soloed instrument, a particular reverb, enhances the overall emotional story?
That is active listening.
Rick's framework is rigorous, but as you said, his delivery prevents it from ever feeling dry. So the next logical step is to explore the genius behind his teaching style itself.
Right. Our third teaching point dives into Beato's specific pedagogical method, because his success isn't just about what he knows, it's about how he delivers it.
His style blends that academic methodology scaffolding, layered explanations, with a radically accessible, enthusiastic, and completely authentic presence that builds instant trust.
Let's start with scaffolding.
Scaffolding is a bedrock academic principle. You build the structure from the ground up, making sure the foundation is solid before you add complexity. And Rick does this brilliantly.
So in his theory lessons, if he's teaching musical modes, he doesn't just jump straight into the exotic sounds of, I don't know, the Locrian mode.
No, he makes sure the major scale, the mother scale, is fully understood first. He establishes how all the modes are just derived from shifting the starting point of that one scale. He builds the bridge one piece at a time.
And this allows him to maintain that dual audience appeal, which is so key to scaling knowledge online.
Totally. In a deep song breakdown, a beginner will hear him name the simple IIVV progression and feel validated. Meanwhile, the advanced listener hears him immediately add, and here we have a secondary dominant leading us into the four chord. So the expert gets the nuance.
And his use of constant summary is crucial for that scaffolding. He'll define a complex term and immediately provide what you could call the beginner translation.
Yes. He does this all the time. He'll say something like, so basically, that chord is borrowed from the parallel minor. If you're new to this, just know it adds a bluesy feel.
That one sentence is perfect. It gives the theory term for the advanced viewer and the immediate emotional takeaway for the beginner.
So the beginner isn't alienated by the jargon, and the expert isn't bored by oversimplification.
To put this in a non-musical context, it's like learning a complex piece of software. The scaffolding approach means you learn to open the program and save a file. That's your major scale, before you learn how to use advanced 3D rendering filters, which is your modal interchange.
If the teacher started with the 3D filters, the beginner would just quit immediately.
Or like learning a language. You learn simple vocabulary and present tense verbs first. The advanced learner gets the subjunctive mood, and the teacher says, this tense lets you express doubt or desire. The theory is framed contextually.
And Beato does that perfectly with music theory. Over time, it creates this massive, ongoing YouTube curriculum. If you binge watch his videos, your musical understanding systematically improves, just like in a college course.
Okay, what about his tools and real-world examples?
He is a master of leveraging his multi-instrumental skills for teaching. He can instantly pivot from showing a concept on guitar to the piano to demonstrating its effect in his DAW.
And that speed is vital, right? Because it caters to different learning styles all at once. The visual learner sees the piano keys, the tactile learner sees the guitar fretboard, and the auditory learner Here's the processed sound.
He doesn't just describe, he instantly shows and tells, and he fundamentally believes in relating theory to immediate practice. His whole mantra is that knowledge has to be put to use.
He doesn't teach a VV chord in a vacuum?
Never. He shows how it creates tension in a famous song and then encourages viewers to try a quick two-bar improvisation using that exact concept. He reinforces usable knowledge.
So the audience sees tangible, immediate results, which fuels their engagement.
His use of analogy and reference is also masterful for memory. He uses tactile and visual metaphors like color in chord voicings. He'll talk about music feeling warm or cold, which lets you associate sound with other sensations.
And he anchors abstract ideas in the familiar. When he's teaching a descending chromatic bass line, he might reference the Beatles' Dear Prudence or a Radiohead song.
By referencing those familiar classics, he hooks into your existing memory and makes the theory concrete and unforgettable.
But maybe the most contagious part of his teaching is just his authenticity.
Oh, absolutely. He comes across as this genuinely enthusiastic mentor, usually in a simple t-shirt, speaking conversationally and injecting just raw excitement into his explanations.
There's zero pretense. He treats the audience with respect, no matter their background. And his passion is so obvious, he'll often just smile or chuckle and exclaim, "Oh man, this is so cool," when a musical moment gets to him.
That genuine, unrestrained enthusiasm is infectious.
And his humility is disarming. He often says he's still learning, and he genuinely loves all genres. If he messes up a chord on guitar, he'll just laugh and correct it. It reinforces that friendly, imperfect teacher-student rapport.
It's not the illusion of a flawless guru. Fans say watching him feels less like being lectured and more like hanging out in the control room with an excited friend who just found a sonic secret.
So let's put this pedagogy into action with a second prompt. Let's try the tension and release melody prompt.
Okay. This applies his principle of using chromaticism for emotional heightening. The challenge is this. Write a short, simple melody, maybe just 4 bars, that's clearly in C major.
But in the third bar, you deliberately use a non-diatonic note, for example, an F sharp, which is the raised fourth.
Use that F sharp, that Lydian color note, to build a little suspense or a sense of lift. Then, in the 4th bar, resolve naturally back to a stable chord tone like G or C.
And you will immediately hear how that slight, deliberate pinch of dissonance creates the exact emotional heightening that he dissects in famous songs. It's theory applied immediately to creation.
His teaching style is just perfectly optimized for the platform. So let's dissect the specific YouTube strategy that turned these lessons into a global phenomenon.
Our final teaching point focuses on the architecture of his online success. His channel, Everything Music, succeeds by strategically rotating content formats.
Right. It allows him to appeal to a huge, multi-generational audience without ever compromising the integrity of his educational mission.
He must have understood that just doing pure academic theory videos would only appeal to a niche audience of highly motivated music students.
For sure. To sustain growth and reach, he needed a diversified ecosystem of content, something that lives up to the channel's name.
Let's break down those formats. The flagship is what makes this song great.
Absolutely. This series is unparalleled because he uses the multitracks, when he can get them, to provide this guided, behind-the-scenes structural analysis of classics by artists like Rush, Steely Dan, Radiohead.
And it's brilliant because it attracts both the musicians who want the technical details and the casual listeners who are just curious about how their favorite music was put together.
It turns passive listening into an active learning experience.
Then you have what you call the reach drivers, the top 10 or top 20 countdowns.
Yes, the digital catnip. Top 20 acoustic guitar intros or greatest drum fills. They're engagement magnets. They showcase his encyclopedic knowledge, they invite debate in the comments, and they're highly shareable.
So they bring in new viewers who then discover the deeper content.
Exactly. And that deeper content is the educational core. The theory lessons and tutorials. These are the whiteboard segments on modes, ear training, improvisation. These are the videos that solidify his reputation as a serious educational resource.
Then there's the authority booster format, the interviews.
He leverages his industry clout to host these incredible, long-form, musically literate conversations with legends Sting, Pat Metheny, Brian May.
And the interviews are amazing because he asks questions only a producer and professor could ask. He's focusing on harmony, technique, production philosophy.
The fact that these A-list artists often reach out to him to be on the show, that speaks volumes about his credibility.
And finally, you have the thought leadership pieces. Rick's rants.
These are his critiques of industry trends, like the simplification of pop harmony over the decades, or his strong arguments against the overuse of autotune.
And these rants establish him as an informed voice. Crucially, he always backs up his opinions with musical examples, showing that his critique is based on demonstrable musical facts, not just, get off my lawn nostalgia.
So that's the content. What about the platform execution?
The execution is paramount. He maintains a rigorous, steady output, posting a few times a week. That consistency keeps the channel favored by the YouTube algorithm.
And he is not afraid of long videos. Many of his analyses are 20, 30 minutes or more. In an era of short-form content, that decision to prioritize depth signals respect for the subject and the learner.
Which actually attracts a more dedicated audience, and YouTube rewards long watch times.
His targeting strategy is also genius. By blending analysis of classic rock and metal, which appeals to an older demographic, with breakdowns of current pop hits, he unites music nerds across all generations.
And his presentation is straightforward. Titles and thumbnails are optimized for search, using superlatives like greatest, but the delivery maintains that earnest, non-clickbait feel.
So that combination, clear, searchable titles linked to deep, authoritative content, that's the blueprint for turning casual viewers into long-term, highly engaged fans.
Let's consider how you can use this Beato blueprint to structure your own communication, whatever your field.
The key takeaway is simple. Always start with context or an emotional hook. If you're giving a presentation or writing an important email, lead with a tangible, emotionally resonant example before you dive into the theory or the data.
Just like Rick says, have you ever wondered why this song gives you chills? Your communication should lead with the chills.
If you're presenting Q3 sales data, don't start with the methodology. Start with the consequence. This massive surge in customer engagement is thanks to 3 specific strategic shifts. You hook the learner with the result, then you provide the analysis.
And for our most advanced learners, let's try one final challenge. The modal mood shift prompt.
This applies his principles of modal interchange directly. Compose a short piece, maybe 16 bars. For the first 8 bars, establish C Dorian. That's C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat. It'll give you a soulful, slightly minor, or melancholic feel.
Then for the remaining 8 bars, shift to C Mixolydian. That's C, D, E natural, F, G, A, B flat. You're keeping the tonal center on C, but you're just changing one note, the 3rd degree, from flat to natural.
And you will literally hear how that single note change completely transforms the mood from minor and soulful to bluesy and major. It shows how minimal adjustments to the foundational scale degrees yield massive emotional shifts.
That is the synthesis of head and heart that Beato champions.
So to summarize the main insights for you today, the curious learner, we've basically reverse engineered the Beato method.
His professional authority is built on an unshakable foundation. That synthesis of academic theory, the master's degree, the 12,000 lessons, with undeniable real-world commercial success, including a #1 hit song.
His analytical framework is robust. He gives you a systematic way to listen, using the technical elements, harmony, melody, rhythm, production, purely in service of the emotional payoff, which is storytelling.
He teaches you to identify the technical ingredients behind your own emotional response.
And his pedagogy is really the gold standard for deep online education. By using scaffolding, absolute authenticity, and clear, relatable analogies, he successfully demystified complex music theory for the masses.
He satisfies the advanced student while making sure the beginner is never intimidated.
Ultimately, the Beato blueprint proves that deep, rigorous content can be wildly popular, but only if it's delivered with passion, transparency, and a clear understanding of learning psychology.
He turned his studio into a global classroom simply by sharing his genuine love of music and, wanting to help people hear the story behind the sound.
So you now have the Beato framework and the pedagogical tools to analyze not just music, but communication and learning itself.
And the best way to solidify this knowledge is to practice. Try one of the application prompts we talked about today. Analyze a song using his 5 pillars, or try that modal shift exercise.
And always remember to ask yourself, as Rick would, why does this specific detail make me feel this way? Look for the technical receipt behind the emotional response. That's the core of applied knowledge.
If you enjoy this deep dive into applied music education, we'd encourage you to explore the methods of other creators who form this kind of vibrant online staff room, like Adam Neely, who's known for blending theory and humor, or David Bennett Piano, who excels at structured, clear lessons on pop music.
They can offer new perspectives on your learning journey. Keep listening, keep applying the framework, and above all, keep that curiosity burning.
We'll see you next time for the next Deep Dive Classroom.